Chicago Bears fans, look, I think they just stole a human pinball. What a nickname. That's right, a human pinball. And if we're looking back on this draft, the Bears didn't really make any high-profile moves at running back, did they? But I think they've got a potential sleeper. I think he might be one of the biggest sleepers in this whole draft. And the guy that I'm talking about is Rutgers' Kyle Monangai. Over his last 2 years at Rutgers, we're looking at a guy that was named to both first-team All-Big Ten in 2024 and second-team All-Big Ten in 2023. He rushed for over 1,000 yards in each of those 2 seasons in a really tough Big Ten conference. And this player, he profiles really nicely for this offense. He's credited with a couple things. He runs like an absolute bruiser, and he also is really good in pass protection, just an absolutely nonstop motor running the ball. Look at some highlights. You will agree very quickly. And I think Monangai, I think he could very well earn himself a role in this Ben Johnson offense. He's got to show that he can bring it all at the next level, though. So let's get into how he fits. But before that, for those of you who have been here for a long time, welcome to Sports Talk Bears. I'm Sean. We have grown this channel so quickly together. I'm pushing towards 10,000 subscribers. So here's the thing. If you like the material, if this is entertaining, if it's useful, hit the subscribe button. It's a huge blessing, and it can push us towards 10,000 subscribers. We can celebrate together. So thank you so much, you guys. So now that that's over, let's talk about how he fits on these Chicago Bears. So we're looking at him coming in as a rookie. He's going to be behind DeAndre Swift, right? He's going to be behind Roschon Johnson. And he's also going to have to compete with a couple guys. We've got Travis Homer, Ian Wheeler. A lot of you have forgotten about him, just a star of Hard Knocks, but he was so promising before he tore up his knee. That really stunk. And we're looking at Monangai now that he's in town. He's really expressing a lot of happiness being at Hallis Hall, and he's really showing a lot of gratitude by being drafted by the Chicago Bears. Just a really underrated addition to this squad, and I really like his attitude. Let's hear it straight from him. I cannot wait to get started learning the playbook, getting on the field. From what I've already seen in his past work and what he's done as an offensive coordinator, I'm just excited. Everybody's telling me how blessed I am to be under a Ben Johnson run team, and that's exactly the way I feel. I'm excited to get to work, meet him, and learn the playbook. Now, I'm hyping this guy up a little bit, but let's not get it twisted. He's going to have to perform well in training camp and in preseason to carve out a big role in this offense. I'm not discounting that. But you got to think a coach like Ben Johnson, he was part of drafting him, and you got to think that he can get the most out of the guy. And a lot of people are agreeing. A lot of people on the internet, a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of people from major outlets, they're talking about him being a huge steal in this draft, and I'll just let them say it. So if we're going to hear from NBC Sports draft expert Connor Rogers. I can't say that. He's buying into this hype. Kyle Monangai is a human pinball. There's a nickname. I love the nickname. That's the best nickname probably since, the human joystick. You guys, bonus points if you can tell me who was known as the human joystick in the Chicago Bears history. Put it in the comments. That's a really fun nickname. So, and also, leading up to this comparison and agreeing, Pro Football Focus, they included a really interesting stat on Kyle Monangai from college. So a lot of people don't know this, but the guy had 139 forced missed tackles since 2023. Like, how significant is that? 139. The next closest Big Ten running back had 91. That's a 50 broken tackle discrepancy between the two. I mean, that says a lot. I'd say that stat certainly backs up the fact that he is being nicknamed the human pinball. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Now, looking at his running style, it actually compares with a familiar face. David Montgomery. Yes, I'm going to draw comparisons to David Montgomery, so get ready here. Remember David Montgomery when he was coming out of Iowa State? He came into the league known a lot of the same things. Hard-nosed, a guy who loves contact. But like Monangai, He bounced off tacklers all the time. He actually led college football in broken tackles his last year in college. So there's lots to like about this kid, and there's also lots of comparison for him. And I'm going to call this up because this is actually really interesting. I'm going to go back to this story on Bear Goggles On, and there's a really interesting chart with these comparisons between the two players. So check this out. I'm going to go through it here. So this comparison to David Montgomery, pretty intriguing here because you're looking at their 40 time, almost identical. Monangai of 4.6 and Montgomery of 4.63. A lot of people are talking about that Monangai does not have a lot of breakaway speed, but neither did David Montgomery. And now we're looking at attempts. Pretty close. Monangai's a little heavier with 669 to Montgomery's 624. You know, we've got the yardage average, 4.8 to 4.7. Man, these guys compare favorably. You've got 27 rushing touchdowns to 26, and he actually blows them away with rushing yards. Monangai had 3,200 plus, while Montgomery was at about 2,900. So, I mean, we're talking about this comparison. It's a real comparison. There's also comparison. We picked him up in the 7th round. So was Isaiah Pacheco. He was drafted in the 7th round. Montgomery was brought into town with similar comparisons. There's just a lot of parallels to be drawn with this player. And I think if you look at the plan for this offense, is it that unexpected that you would have these two players running in tandem? I mean, the assumption has been that it's going to be Roschon Johnson. I covered that yesterday. But what about Monangai? He profiles as the David Montgomery of this offense. This is really interesting. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this is definitely something that we should explore. And let's look at what was said after the draft. CBS Sports NFL expert Emory Hunt. He was actually on the air, and he talked about two of his favorite underrated picks in this last draft. Surprise, Monangai was one of them. So let's go to the direct quote. We spent 3 months putting Ashton Jeanty with the Bears. And then he alluded to the fact that Chicago bypassed running back a lot of times in this draft. Ryan Poles said that the draft board just didn't cooperate. We can talk about that later. But here's what he said about Monangai. This is a fantastic selection, in my opinion. This guy reminds me a lot of Ahmad Bradshaw. Runs angry, kind of like the guy we currently see in the NFL from the Rutgers football program. We already talked about him. Isaiah Pacheco, outstanding tailback, a guy that can be a 1B or DeAndre Swift's 1A. I thought this was a phenomenal selection for the Chicago Bears, an underrated guy who can be a co-starter, and that's from Hunt. Now we have the Pacheco comparison, right? And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, too, Eric Bieniemy is here as a running backs coach, so he's very familiar with utilizing a runner with this running style and also converting a 7th rounder from Rutgers into a pro-ready and actually sometimes dominant NFL running back. So let's this is interesting enough because the Chiefs, they selected Pacheco in the 7th round. The two of them, they share the same affinity for just running over guys, running like their hair is on fire, taking things personal, breaking through tackles. Very similar players. And I really think that Eric Bieniemy might have had a hand in this. So let's kind of look at this too. Kyle Monangai, you might not have heard of him by the casual college football viewer, but coming out of Rutgers, the guy is not completely without pedigree. Once again, we're looking at a 2-time All-Big Ten running back, having been a first-teamer in 2024, a second-teamer in 23, tallied over 2,500 rushing yards, 22 total touchdowns in his final 2 seasons at Rutgers, and that's where he served as a primary running back for who's the mascot? The Scarlet Knights. So he's from New Jersey. He actually finished, let's talk PFF. He finished with a PFF grade of 92.5 in 23. Wow, that's a high rating. And then he followed it up with another strong year and got a 77.3 grade just this last year. PFF had him as a number 178th overall player on their board. Tremendous value at that ranking of 178 being drafted in the 7th round. That's fantastic value. And I like Jacob Infante a lot. He is so spot on typically. This is what Jacob Infante had to say. You don't have to just take it from me. Monangai, he's a tough runner who's been very productive at the collegiate level. Over 2,300 rushing yards, 22 touchdowns in the last 2 years. Great contact balance, low center of gravity, really shifty. And the other 7th round comp for us to consider, and this actually happened before Pacheco. I already mentioned it earlier. How about the New York Giants' Ahmad Bradshaw? Do you remember him? He was kind of a stud for a couple years. And for those that don't remember, 7th round pick out of Marshall, a smaller school, kind of similar to Rutgers. He ended up being a 2-time 1,000-yard rusher for the New York Giants. And he actually got 2 Super Bowl rings. And that's there are some good comps. Just because he was drafted in the 7th round and his speed doesn't jump off the table, I hope I've shown you the comparables, one of them being David Montgomery. I think he's a really good pick, and I'm really excited to see what he does in camp. And history has shown us again and again that speed isn't everything that matters with a running back. We're talking if you have power, if you have vision, if you have contact balance, if you have a low pad level, if you run with intent, I guess you would say. Really good chance you can be productive in the NFL. Kyle Monangai, he's one of those guys. Ahmad Bradshaw, he's one of those guys. Isaiah Pacheco, one of those guys. And yes, even David Montgomery. He was a guy that wasn't highly touted coming out of college. Really, his best stat was the broken tackle stat out of Iowa State. He ended up being pretty good for the Bears, and then he ended up really being a star with the Lions. We're dumb for getting rid of him, basically, is what I'm saying. But the guy's really difficult to bring down on the first tackle. He's been really productive for a top college program. And I don't know. I'm not sure he's a 3-down back, but definitely he can be an effective tandem mate with DeAndre Swift. And at the very least, be part of even a 3-back rotation if Roschon Johnson ends up balling out. So I don't see anything wrong with this pick at all. I don't see anything wrong with adding to this hype on him that's starting to build speed. And let's pound the table for the nickname, the human pinball, that was given to us by this announcer that I highlighted. So you guys let me know in the comments what you think about Kyle Monangai, if you think he could be the answer for what we're looking for at running back. As always, I will be back here tomorrow with daily Chicago Bears news. Bear down, and we'll talk soon. Like and subscribe. See ya.